live from Sister Basebone Studio. Urban Teachers Lounge is a platform for bridging the gap between educational scholarship and classroom teachers. Voices will include teachers, administrators, educational scholars, community members, and activists.
Hey, everybody. Hey, if I tell you, I'm happy. I'm excited right now. Welcome to Urban Teachers Lounge. I am your host, G. Funmilayo DeVoe. This podcast is unapologetically for Black teachers, unapologetically by Black teachers. The purpose of this program is to bridge the gap between educational scholarship and classroom teachers. So today, I have a special treat for you, a special guest for you. Today, we'll have a visitor. I'm gonna get that suspense keep going on you. We got a bad, B-A-D-D-D-D-D-D, bad sister. As I said, if you watched my Instagram, I put on there a bad, phenomenal social studies, social educator, just bad. But that's all I'm going to tell you right now. So before I introduce you to her, go on and grab your cup of coffee and let's talk. All right, I'm back. I hope you got your coffee. Yes, I didn't give you no time on this. No time. So today, I have an exceptional woman who is indeed a historian, an author, an educator from P20. That means from the K-12 system as well as the collegiate level, for those who don't know what that is. Her qualifications, as she sent to me, says this: extensive experience in curriculum development, secondary through collegiate instruction and educational leadership, the social sciences, political, civil engagement, and publishing. Veteran educator that has taught in various capacities, such as secondary education in both middle and high school in urban settings, adjunct faculty at the Metropolitan Little Rock College, alternative education, and adult education. For over 6 years, conducted professional development and training sessions for teachers and educational leaders. Crafts public policy positions utilizing her professional blog. She's a published author and writer, as well as manuscripts in publication process. She's still doing it. She's putting it down. Maintains an active social media and marketing platform. Please put your hands together for my friend, my colleague, my who I want to be when I grow up, Dr. Quintessa Hathaway Hervey.
Hello, Dr. DeVoe. I would like to just tell you that I appreciate you. I'm grateful and blessed to be given this opportunity to speak on your platform, Urban Teachers Lounge. I want you to continue to rise as we know to rise, as
yes,
Dr. Maya Angelou has so beautifully and eloquently told us to. And I want you to push forward and do everything great and open up every door that was once locked, and you walk in your glory, my friend.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm grateful for you.
Thank you. Welcome to the show. Come on and unleash that greatness on them. You want me to start? You want me to? How you want to go?
You know, it just kind of depends on the direction that you want to go. My heart is open. It's full. I've been working on a number of things throughout my professional career. Mm-hmm. And if you want to start from that point, we may. If you want to begin in our discussion of Black History Month, which we are fully unearthed in it at this time, we can go from there. I know that you and I had a previous conversation where we can go and talk more extensively on the miseducation of the Negro.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
You just run the gamut.
Okay.
You are the host, and I'm just going to be a part of your process.
I think I'm just the squirrel right now. I'm just saying. I believe I'm just the squirrel. So this is what I'm going to say. One, I do want you to speak your truth, number one. But I do want to notify the folks of all this juice that we're about to unleash on them. So today, we're going to look at The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson, who is also a historian, author, and educator. He's the founder of ASALA, which is Association of the Study of African American Life and History. That was established in 1915. Yes, our ancestors are doing their thing. And then you, of course, guided me in this national theme. I'm going to let you handle that. And then the other thing, and this is all I'm saying, we must commemorate the 400 years of perseverance of being an African in this country of the U.S. America. That is something else to discuss. Now, with that, that's all I needed to say. I'm following you. I know you're going to teach the people about The Miseducation of the Negro. If you don't have it, you need to get it by Carter G. Woodson. It's at your local black bookstore, I'm sure. And then there we go. Go, Doc. It's on you.
Because I am a historian, I want to start just with some specific dates, times, and information.
Yes.
One of which, people of African descent have been in the United States. It'll be 400 years next month in March.
In March.
It will be March. Originally, there were 20 individuals that came to Jamestown, Virginia, and embarked in that area, helped clear the land, set up that region for whites to be able to enjoy, if we're going to be totally honest about it.
Yeah,
from that time when we arrived in Jamestown, Virginia, we were under a position of peonage. We were under a position of inferiority, in which whites then, as well as now, have been the staple of privilege, have been the staple of acceptance, as well as the status quo.
Oh.
There's a book that I read here a couple of years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm going to pull it off of my bookshelf right now.
Okay.
It's by Nancy Isenberg. The book is titled White Trash, The 400-Year Untold History of Class in America.
Ooh, wait. Hold up, Doc.
Okay.
Hold up. Slow that. Because I'm trying to write it down. I know our people, I hope they had to put the coffee cup down right there. White Trash, 400, what's the rest?
Year. Untold History of Class in America by Nancy Isenberg.
Ooh.
When I tell you all this book is hot, my husband would laugh at me sometimes when I would have this book out with me, just leisurely reading. He would say, I'm making people uncomfortable. But I'm like, you know me well enough to know that I don't mind making people uncomfortable.
Yes, ma'am. It's called Disrupting the Status Quo.
Yes.
That's what we call that.
And this book highlights how the very underbelly, the most disastrous, lowest class of whites were the ones that were a part of the founding of Jamestown, Virginia. These were not the superior elitists that we may have been taught to think came to Jamestown. That is not the case. The most servile ended up being the superior.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that book totally unpacks all the mythology that we believe to be about Jamestown. It even goes more extensively to discuss how Jamestown almost folded because the British Crown had cut off some of the funding for a period of time.
Oh, I don't think the people ready for that one. I think what I'm going to already establish is you must return to go deeper on this. We need to unpack this. We need to unpack this book. I will definitely include it at the bottom of the podcast so that everyone can get your reading material together. So when we return with the good doctor, we'll be able to have some questions and conversation. Yes. All right there. And?
We can also talk about how there have been pieces of legislation that have been put forth several times from congressmen to provide reparations for those of African descent in the areas of housing and education and medicine, the total erosion of our institutions. There's one congressman in particular, I want to say it's Conyers. Conyers just stepped away here maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. He was the main architect of that piece of legislation that was designed to pay out those reparations, as well as to create committees and investigate and ultimately create a detailed report in order for reparations to be paid.
So when you say
which
that,
has yet to happen.
when you say that, Doc, you make me think of a couple of days ago when I went to a conference. I was informed that there is a decade of international reparations. I'm gonna have to find it. Are you familiar with that? I have to look it up now. But it comes through the United Nations. Have you heard about this? It's 2015, I think, to 2024.
Here's what
Let me see if I can find that while
unfamiliar
you're
with
talking.
this specific piece, but here's what I do know. Malcolm X was in preparation to bring charges against the United States for its mistreatment of people of African descent in the United States during his time here among us.
Right.
But
Right.
his life was snuffed out shortly before he was able to have that conversation with the United Nations.
That was by design, of course.
Yes. And none of this is by accident. It's all perpetuated. It's
Yes.
all laid out. It's just a matter of us finding out the information in order to push it forward to our people.
So even with you saying that, in my research, when I started my my doctorate program, I was of course looking at Black educators because that's who we are. But I found educational policy, and at that moment I was like, wow, I think I should know some of this. So a part of my research is definitely dealing with critical race theory in education. And with critical race theory, of course, you come with that legislative piece. That would be Derrick Bell, when he started that with other great scholars as Kimbrele Crenshaw and others. But that is the first time that I've ever consciously thought about that is a lot of the problems that we're having in the classroom. We don't have policies in place. So no matter what the classroom teacher is doing, no matter what the principal is doing, no matter what the school board is even doing, you still have to answer to a piece of legislation, a piece of,
Right.
of a policy, which I see in your credentials. You talk about positioning and utilizing your platform to position some public policy. And that's something that not only parents need to know, teachers need to know, schools need to know, because we clearly are not, there's a void there. There's a gap there where we are not communicating with the people that are making decisions, particularly as it relates to our children. So
Yes.
I wanted to throw that out because what you're suggesting is understanding policies that are in place. When we talk about Black education, we're not just talking about math, reading, and writing. We're talking about all the things outside.
Fully integrated, holistic
Yes, ma'am.
education.
And so there are more things, and you just called it off. When you're talking about housing, which is my personal research that I'm doing with gentrification. Gentrification, how is that impacting us? When you talk about neoliberalism, when you talk about these things that are bigger than me in my classroom trying to teach my 35 when I close the door, right? And so we, this is the point of this particular platform, is to make sure and to fortify the teachers, the ones that are on the front line, to understand that, hey, you're not saying anything that has not been said. And we still have to fight this fight. So anyway, I just wanted to add that.
DeVoe, I want to add just a moment there. I think that because we have this long history of being locked out of the political system, although we made these substantial gains in the Congress, African American president, we've actually had 2 of those, and I can talk about that here in just a moment. But because we've made these headways and we've made these gains, we think that all is well.
Yes, ma'am.
But every time we,
We.
women, people of color, make socio-political and economic gains, there is an immediate white backlash
Yes, it is.
that is written into the federal, state, and local laws and
Yes,
statutes
ma'am.
that are designed to erode all those gains that have been made. And people are sitting back right now in their individual think tank. They have their own institutes as well as the capital in place to push back against us
Yes.
every single time we try to make progress as a people.
Yes, ma'am.
What has to happen, and I truly believe, we have got to put ourselves in the position of power
Yeah.
as well as in a position of production in order to change the paradigm.
I think you're right. I know you're
We
right.
as educators are going to have to be the ones that craft the legislation.
Yes.
We are the
And
ones
that's
that are
what we
going to
don't.
have.
That's what we don't do, because as educators, we're confused to believe that we are the way that they treat us. And now I'm gonna get ugly on this thing. So the way you treat teachers in general and black teachers specifically, sometimes we lose sight on our power. And because
Yes.
we're not sitting at the table having these conversations, because we're not going down to the Capitol, we're not recreating
We're
and,
not
and talking
lobbying.
about policy. You see what I'm saying? We're not even at the table. And because we're not, and why aren't we at the table? Let's go even deeper on ugly. We're not at the table because by design you want me to spin around, and in my spinning I'm going to be so angry that I don't have time. I'm exhausted, right? I'm exhausted and I won't
then
go
soon,
that
Devo,
next line. Come
the
on with it.
meetings are held during times which we are at school.
Intentional. Is that intentional?
And
Because
then I'll
that
say
also
this
means
month-
that the community is at work. That also means
Yes.
that parents are at work. Contrary to popular belief, all of our parents are not crackheads. All of our parents don't not care about their children. No, some of us work for a living.
Here's how it's written in the state of Arkansas, my former school district. It's written in their PPC. If a teacher decides to take off from work for political reasons,
Yeah.
they have to take a personal day.
Yes, ma'am.
If it is found that they use that time as sick time,
Wow.
they can be penalized for
Wow.
using that time fraudulently.
Now, here's the irony
are-
in this. Here's the irony in this. The irony is you're telling me as a teacher, I'm supposed to be, in my understanding of being a teacher, 16 plus years, in my understanding, I'm supposed to model the expectation of being a citizen, correct? And you're
Correct.
saying that at any moment that I decide to exercise my right as a citizen, that you're going to challenge my job, which again moves into my research of black teacher displacement. That's what you just said to me, right? So every
Yes.
time I try to use my voice to better the children, because I always ask the question, is this good for kids? Is this good for kids? What we're doing, is it good for kids? Is it good for the administration? Does the administrator look good? Or is it good for the people that we say we're here to help?
Right.
But there are, as you're pointing out, and I've read in Georgia laws, there are policies in place that every time we, and I would venture to say, it's always written on the books as needed. So perhaps if your political persuasion is not what the majoritarian view
Right.
is, then I might activate that particular policy. But if indeed you make me look good because your policy goes along with the majoritarian view, which typically does not match the marginalized people,
That is correct.
then they make us look good and we can go do that, right? And that's that double standard, right?
It's designed for assimilation.
Yes, ma'am, it is. And because some of us refuse to assimilate, we have technical difficulty. I'm going to leave that one right there.
Systemic difficulties.
Yes, ma'am.
that have real power and potency.
Yes, ma'am. All
Yeah.
day. So let's move to, because we already filled some people up. I'm going to advise our listening crew. One, I want you to definitely leave some comments on this because we're still going. And two, what I will do is I will write down all of the things that we're talking about. So I'm taking notes, as teachers do. I'm taking notes, and I will give you a suggested reading and things to move forward. But as she brought up this, as Doc brought up this 400-year commemoration, and the policies that are in place that have hindered us, but we still rise, like Maya Angelou says. Let's shift a little bit to Carter G. Woodson. Am I correct at saying that he is the reason why we have Black History Week, which turned into Black History Month? Is this correct?
Yes, you are totally correct.
So school our audience on, because some of us, miseducated and all, we don't know who he is, and then lead us into conversation on the miseducation of the Negro. Because that is a part of the reason why we're not down here fighting for some of these policies. Right. I said that. What you got, Doc?
Dr. Carter G. Woodson is considered the father of African American History Month. Mm-hmm. He, as well as one of the lesser-known pioneers of this month, Reverend Jesse E. Moorland, really took a chance to even push forward to create Negro History Week in its inception. They were literally putting their lives on the line, putting their careers on the line, putting their families in jeopardy for the sake of acculturating us and informing us of who we truly are, which are divine kings and queens.
Yes.
Dr. Carter G. Woodson is actually the second African American to attain a doctorate degree from Harvard University. And a very critical point, an inflection point in American history. He went there, attained his doctorate. Prior to then, he attended Berea College, which is located in Kentucky.
It sure is. Wow.
Yes. There's actually a street.
That's a social justice school.
Berea. Yes. There's actually a street named after him on the campus of Berea College.
And I think their urban educational, am I correct? Their urban education college or something is named after him as well, I think.
He also went on to attain his bachelor's and his master's from the University of Chicago. By profession as well as by talent, he was an author, a historian, as well as a publisher.
Yes.
Reverend Jesse E. Moorland, he was actually able to pass if he had so selected, and that's another conversation.
Oh, yes.
But he attended what is now Ohio Northern University, where he got his bachelor's, and he went on to attend the illustrious Howard University, where he obtained his master's. He was a minister, a civic leader, as well as a historian like Dr. Carter G. Woodson. I truly believe that one reason why he is not as highlighted as much is because of Dr. Woodson's involvement, more so during that time, as well as being a groundbreaker. But we also need to give credit and homage to
Reverend
Moorland,
Reverend
too.
Jesse E. Moorland. Ashe.
The founders at that time felt that, and it's also documented, quantitative and qualitative analysis showed that the history of blacks during this time was not highlighted correctly. It was totally biased, totally prejudiced, generalistic, always put us in a position of servitude and lowliness. And they felt that they needed to create this organization, which was originally called the Association for the Study of African American Negro Life and History, started in September of 1915. Because both of them were historians and authors, they began to write books that covered the accomplishments and contributions of black people, not just in the United States, but globally, and those of us that are part of the diaspora.
Yes.
In 1926, the organization, the Association for the Study of Negro Life and History, still at that time, started Negro History Week. How they went about challenging the status quo and promoting Negro History Week. Both had traveled nationally as well as internationally, giving lectures, passing out pamphlets, as well as giving collections of books, like volumes of books and encyclopedias to historically Black colleges and universities. Moorland himself was so passionate about this that he gave his collection of books away to Howard University, and it was also written into his will to give away all of his books. Yes.
Wow.
It was not until 1926 that Negro History Week was extended to an entire month. There are a few different pieces that go along with that. One is because it was also a part of the 200-year anniversary of the nation's independence from Great Britain.
Right.
It's also a disservice to only give credence to it for an entire month, because we are Black. We have been experiencing Blackness.
Yes, ma'am.
We have experienced this attitude, this belief system of what it means to be Black all of our lives.
Right.
So to say it's only a month, it still is going against the grain.
Well, according to this 400-year commemoration, I think we deserve at least 400 days, right?
That is correct.
But in my life, in my
too.
world, I believe that Black History Month or Black History is 365 days
It's a
out of the year,
lifestyle.
and it's 366 days on leap year. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I just think that, we all should be talking and learning about this here thing. So, that's where we are. So the next thing is, thank you for enlightening us on Reverend Jesse Moorland. So what do you want to highlight? And I'm not rushing you. You can take your time. What do you want to highlight in the miseducation of the Negro? I think people may or may not be familiar with this. I do want to say this, and I want you to jump in on this. I am always offended every time Black people read and we understand ourselves to be marginalized, if you will, as militant. I'm not militant. I just want my folks to know the truth. I want my children to know the truth. I want our community to know the truth, because when we know who we are, then we stand taller, we stand stronger. So tell us what you think about this book. What do you think about militant? Because this is like the militant Bible. Like
it is.
You ain't Black. Like your Black card would definitely be revoked.
It would be revoked.
Look, even if you ain't even read the book, like you better have this joint on your bookshelf with the intent to read, right? Because somebody gonna call you out. Like you don't even know who Carter G. Woodson is. So, I'm okay if militant means I know myself and my people, but must we use that word, So tell it, teach us, oh great doctor, teach us, yes.
Well, Woodson actually wrote this book in his home in Washington, D.C. in 1933. He turned his home into his publishing office. Wow. He used his living room primarily as one of his areas to write, and I think there were 2 floors up above that he used primarily as his living quarters. But he used the first level as his publishing office when he crafted this book in 1933. Wow. His home is actually on the National Historic Registry, if my memory serves correctly. I may have to go look at that one again. But Washington, D.C. is where he wrote this book. I think that it is very prophetic, very timely. It's a classic for all people, despite color, creed, national origin. And each of us are able to use this as a tool to push forward the narrative of our individual cultures.
Right.
This is actually one of my favorites. Like, I put it on the top 5. Right. I've even had my students over the years read this book. At the school in which we teach, last school year, the kids read this in my sociology class. We totally unpacked the text
Yes.
They were required to do a number of vocabulary exercises. We had some very thorough Socratic conversations about the book, and I wanted them to be able to peel back
Yes.
the truth and to be able to examine the text for what it is, what it was, and what it will forever be.
Yes, ma'am.
We can start looking specifically on the section that says the seat of trouble.
That would be chapter 1. So those of you that actually have your hymnals, I should have warned you to go on and get your hymnal. The seat of the trouble is chapter 1, page 1. Go ahead, Doctor. Yes.
The author talks so much about how we are facing, even during that time and in present day, some very grievous times. The Negro was considered as inferior, then as well as now, because we're still in that fight.
Right.
We were experiencing a level of subjugation. We were considered as uneducated, although we were the craftsmen, the chief craftsmen in every trade, but we did not have a certain level of intellectual learning that was equivalent to the majority community.
So let's be clear. We did not write it down because we're an oral people. And because we didn't write it down, you naturally assumed that we were not skilled. But we did build a pyramid, and you still don't know how that happened. Okay, go ahead.
And we also have hieroglyphics that have been yet to be decoded.
Yes.
But he talks about how our education is primarily geared toward what is considered to be whiteness, very Eurocentric, Western-dominated, and how we need to begin to use our knowledge, use the Negro doctor of philosophy, those that are Negroes that serve on faculties. During this time, he was talking mostly about Southern education, Southern universities, those that ended up becoming HBCUs, being directed initially by white.
Right.
The first presidents of most of our institutions were white.
Right.
Most of our instructors at that time were white. They had come from the North, they had come from the Midwest to be able to teach in our institutions alongside other African American educators. He goes on to talk about Negro children. We can come down maybe a few paragraphs. He said the Negro children, as a rule, come from the homes of tenants and peons who have to mitigate annually from plantation to plantation, looking for light which they have never seen. The children from the homes of white planters and merchants live permanently in the midst of calculations, home, family budgets, and the like, which enable them sometimes to learn more contact than the Negro can acquire in school. Instead of teaching such Negro children less arithmetic, they should be taught more than that of the white children. For the latter attend a graded school consolidation by free transportation, then the Negro can go from one room rented hovels to be taught without equipment and by incompetent teachers educated scarcely beyond the 11th grade, 8th grade.
So it's interesting that you said, I'm going to hit you right here. It's interesting that you talk about math, because even as an English teacher, how many times do I argue with children about, oh, I'm not good at math? Or you hear a random parent, oh, I wasn't good at math, so he not going to be. No. We don't need to do that, because we come from mathematicians. We come from scientists. You know, our life did not, as they say, our life did not begin in slavery. Our story didn't begin in slavery, right? Slavery, what did they say? Slavery interrupted our history because we was already on the grand stage. But it's interesting that he wrote this, what did you say, in the 30s? And he's even challenging how much math we teach our kids. Is this not an issue today where you're trying to add STEM, you're trying to, teach children math, but you didn't start them out that way. So by the time they get to higher math, they're not ready for it. Is this right?
That is correct. Doc, we go back and forth, even when we were at school together, about these books now,
Right.
because I am a bibliophile by love.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book that you and your listeners can jot down. It's called Radical Equations.
Radical Equations.
Radical Equations. The subheading is Civil Rights from Mississippi to the Algebra Project by Bob Moses. And if we know anything about Bob Moses, oh my, historian, civil rights leader, he was involved in CORE as well as COFO in the state of Mississippi.
Okay.
I mean, he's a living legend among
Wow.
anyone that knows anything about the civil rights movement, most specifically Freedom Summer, Mississippi, 1964. I mean, I'm getting chill bumps just talking about Bob Moses.
Yeah.
I met him actually while I was matriculating through Jackson State University, and I was just in total awe the entire time. Like, I was literally living off of every word that came from his mouth.
Wow.
But in this text, he talks specifically about how when the students learn algebra, they are able to push through any other level, upper level of mathematics.
Right.
And
That's the
algebra is
foundation.
actually the gateway to bridging the divide between black and white when it comes to the achievement gap.
Wow. The construct of the achievement gap. Okay. Wow.
Yes.
Algebra bridges the gap. Wow. I believe that because even though I'm an English teacher by trade, I was a science and math kind of person. So I love all school, but I love the math. I love the math and sciences. So this is phenomenal. I would definitely add that to our suggested reading list for our viewers and listeners rather. So I want to go back. I'm going to take you back a little bit because when I started doing my homework for you for this conversation, I was struck by the first sentence in chapter 1. First sentence.
Okay.
I paused because I knew that we would probably hurt some people's feelings. I don't think I cared, but I did pause. Give me credit for that. So the first sentence says, the quote-unquote educated Negroes have the attitude of contempt toward their own people because in their own, as well as in their mixed schools, Negroes are taught to admire the Hebrew, the Greek, and the Latin, and to despise the African. Drop the book. Drop the mic. Talk to us about that.
That has not changed. And here's why. I read, this has maybe been about 7 or 8 years ago now, that even as our historically black colleges and universities, most do not offer a degree program in African or African American studies.
Exactly.
These are our schools. These are our
schools.
schools.
But we don't have the, okay. Shall I say it's a money issue? Shall I say it's resources? Shall I say, do we support these things? Like what is it? Why don't we
I
have it?
believe that it is a lack of knowledge, a full lack of understanding, and we have come to believe that just because we are enrolled in those HBCUs, that it's going to be automatically integrated, is going to be automatically inculcated, is going to be automatically inclusive in the curriculum.
Right.
Even though those of us that are graduates of these institutions, we know we got the best.
Right.
We were immersed in it every single day. We were on the yard,
Right.
feeling black power every single day.
Right.
But sometimes things need to be put on paper.
Right.
They need to be in our degree program offerings.
Right.
so that we can continue to uplift one another
Right.
and have the academic credentials to back those things.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's what has to happen. And like I said, the last time I looked at that was maybe 8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I doubt if much has changed.
And even that also speaks to when we come down to the K-12 world. I believe I just saw, I think it was Chicago. I know New York has had culturally inclusive, i.e. Black African American history as a class in K-12 education. But it's always interesting to me, and I've always chosen to work in urban schools or black schools, inner city schools, because I was born and raised in one, i.e. DC public schools. So I'm a firm believer in public school system because I know that there are great folks there. But it is interesting that there are no places in the curriculum where our children see themselves.
Right.
You know, so if you constantly teach me from kindergarten all the way up, if you constantly teach me that white is right, that, you know, you open your history book, and this is all over the United States of America, we go from slavery to Martin Luther King. Now, I suppose in the next couple of years, it'll be slavery, Martin Luther King, and then Obama. What happened?
Right.
There was a couple of years, centuries even, in between these time periods. But all, as you said before, all our children are exposed to is the notion of servitude. But it's also a grooming so that when they come out of their schools, no matter what grade these or whatever it is, when they come out of these schools, they think that servitude is okay. And that goes back to go to school, get a good job, which means you're probably going to work for somebody that may or may not be concerned about your interest. They don't have your interest at heart.
Yeah, I'm going to pull from a quote by our wonderful ancestor, Dr. John Henrik Clarke.
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to paraphrase this just a little bit. And he tells us how our minds are being controlled by conquerors. Mm-hmm. We cannot expect them to teach us our history in any shape or form, because the African has no friends.
Right. Right.
He said that we should not be ashamed of our culture. We should not be ashamed of our history. We have already broken down the wall.
Yes. 400 years of perseverance is what they say. Okay.
I like that.
1619 to 2019.
Yeah.
400 years of our ancestors. 400 years we're standing on the backs of somebody that moved the needle for us to even have this conversation right now. You're in Arkansas and I'm in Georgia. And right now we're having intellectual conversation to motivate and stimulate each other so that we can go to our next level and then pass the torch, share the wealth, share the knowledge. Because knowledge is our wealth. That is our capital. That is what's going to open the door for us. But we have to figure out how we can use that. So in you saying that, it made me think of, and of course I don't have any of this beside me, but it made me think of Audre Lorde, who said a similar quote to the effect of, you can't expect to learn in the master's house how to take down the master's house. Meaning, the master's not going to give you tools to tear up his house. So if we continue, going back to the title of this, the miseducation of the Negro, if we continue to try to play their game and beat them at their game with their tools, it's not going to ever work. Because it's not designed to work that way. It's designed for us to go back.
And we have to stop using the master's language to determine our ultimate outcome.
Right. That's right. That's right.
You know, Garvey tells us, up you mighty race, accomplish what you will. Mm-hmm. We are unassailable if we are just willing, able to put forth the work.
Yeah.
You know, one of my things is, and I say this sparingly, even though it's written on my heart, you know, I come from the strongest race of people that has ever roamed the earth.
Right.
We are the beginning of all people.
That's
If
right.
we look at Australopithecus afarensis, quote unquote Lucy, in East Africa, the black woman was the beginning of humanity.
Right. And that's documented.
Yes, and
It's
if we can just
documented.
if we can harness that power
Right.
and recognize who we are and straighten up our backs, we can gain back our glory.
Yeah.
It's going to take time because we've been so stooped over. We've been so broken for so long.
And we
even
have to
though
unlearn. We have to unlearn the things that are not benefiting us as people, as human beings, as individuals, and as a collective. We have to unlearn. We are part of this system, this capitalized system. We are a part of white supremacy and black inferiority complexes. We're a part of this. And so the parts that are not for us, we need to unlearn and undo that. And to quote from my friend who should be a scholar, Kendrick Lamar, yes, I said that. He said, I got loyalty inside my DNA. Is that correct? So if you think about the blood that runs through our veins from our ancestors, generation after generation, survivors, persevering, all kinds of whatnots, and still smiling, still able to have these conversations, still adding culture to the globe, not just to U.S. American context. We have to acknowledge that if we can do this under oppression, what then can we do not under oppression?
Liberation.
And liberation, education for liberation. But the question is, who's educating you and what are they teaching you?
Right.
And when do you know how to discern the difference? Well, doctor, we can definitely talk forever and ever and ever and ever. Yes, ma'am, I am glad that you came by and talked to us. I'm glad that our listeners are here and they hung in with us. I'm going to have to make sure I write at the beginning, hey, this is going to be an extended conversation, well worth the conversation, well worth it. To get just an overview of Black history, of our ancestors who've gone before us. We've called out some names that I wrote down. We knew about Carter G. Woodson, but then she called out the Reverend Jesse E. Moorland. She called out Bob Moses, John Henry Clarke, and the list goes on, and we don't want to forget. We want to honor them and continue to move the needle. When we do things, we need to do things with the mindset that somebody gave us this opportunity. And how do we leave an opportunity and a legacy for those that are coming behind us? So before I wrap this up, I want you, if you have any final thoughts, any final words that you want to impart on us, please share, and I'm going to hold you to it. I want you back. Yes, ma'am. We got stuff to talk about. You already landed us on some other books. This White Trash 400-Year Untold History. That's a whole podcast. And then the other one, Radical Equations. So we have stuff to talk about, to share. So do you have any final words that you want to share with us?
There's something I'm pushing right now in the state of Arkansas on Saturday, February 23rd.
February 23rd.
From 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. A number of organizations and myself, I'm the spearheader, the organizer on this. We will be marching from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drive to the state capitol to pressure the state of Arkansas to change the direction, to change the discipline, the curriculum
Yes.
across the state so that it is more inclusive of people of color.
Yes.
Because our stories matter,
Yes.
our lives matter, our history matters, and we are the chief contributor to this country. We built it, and we are helping to sustain it,
Right.
whether it's acknowledged or not. But we need each teacher, each district, each commissioner of education to be put on notice
Yes.
that this is our time.
This is our time.
We are fighting to have a march for a culturally inclusive curriculum
Yes.
beginning in the state of Arkansas.
Yes.
And if I get enough wind beneath my wings,
Oh, we're going to pray that for you.
I'm coming.
Come on.
My people, we are coming. It's time to include us too,
Exactly.
because America is changing.
Yes.
We are at a critical and controversial point in this country.
Yes.
America is blackening, she is browning, she is yellowing, and she is reddening. And the majority community is shrinking.
Yes.
And it is time for us to be included in the narrative,
Yes.
from end to end, paradigm to paradigm.
Yes.
And I'm excited about what is about to happen. I have my own nerves and bubbles that are coming through from
Yes.
time to time,
Yes.
but I'm ready. I'm not worried. I know that I have the ancestors. I know that I
Yes.
have my family around me,
Yes. Yes.
and I'm going to be okay.
Yes, you are.
But my message is right.
That's right.
The movement is right.
Yes, it is.
And as long as those two things circumnavigate about me,
Yeah.
we'll be okay.
Yes.
Because it's time for this agenda to come forward. We are converging now. We are on the precipice of change.
Right.
And it's not just a conversation, it is an attitude, it's a belief system.
Yeah.
And it's not just me that's feeling this.
Right.
There are other people that are feeling these exact same things.
It's in
And
our
they're
DNA.
just ready.
That's why we're feeling it together. We're all saying the
that's-
same thing.
Yes. And that's why it will work.
Yes.
Because in order for us to have the perpetuity, the everlasting desire to change the world in which we live, we have to set our vision out. Stop talking
Right.
and do the work. And I'm ready to do the work.
Yes.
And, not to give credence so much to me or to beat my own drum, but I have been preparing for these moments all my life.
Yeah.
This
It's
is
our destiny.
nothing new.
This is what we have to do. And
some
we are
people
not
believe-
doing it alone. We have to talk about it. We have to share it. We have to platform it, whatever platform we can use, and then get others, inspire, encourage others. We're educators at heart. So we know that it's not just us. It is all of us, and all of us have to participate, and all of us have to support the vision for our very existence.
Yes.
Because our existence counts on it, and it is a part of our destiny to do this. So I am so very grateful that you stopped by. To our community of listeners, I hope that you all share this podcast. This is an extended podcast, but very necessary to bring in Black History Month. Please share this podcast with your community of teachers, your scholars, your activists, parents, friends. We love to hear from you. Follow me, G. Funmilayo, Facebook. That would be Urban Teachers Lounge. Instagram, Urban Teachers Lounge, Podomatic, Urban Teachers Lounge, and now I'm on YouTube, Urban Teachers Lounge. Leave your comments, your suggestions. I will leave a suggested reading list of what we talked about, what Dr. Hervey gave us today to look at. Until we meet again, I am excited. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Hervey, for coming in with us. And to the rest of you, my listeners, our listeners, we love you. We thank you. Happy Black History Month. Happy 400 years of perseverance. Until we meet again, peace, power, and progress.